Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us here on this very foggy. Look at that, Tracy.
Isn't that wild? That's like neon, bizarrely eerie
I know,
skyline.
apocalyptic looking.
Yeah.
Hope y'all are enjoying it out there. Hunter Hoagland here with Tracy Cornett. It is 9:40, so we're gearing up for the 10 o'clock show. A lot to talk about. Honestly, the biggest story of the day, I'm sure many of you were talking about it. I talked about it on my dinner break. It's just that explosive NES news conference that many of you probably listened to in our 4 o'clock hour.
Would you call it explosive?
I would call it explosive.
What was explosive about it to you?
I think it was one of those, you watch it and you're like, I don't know if I need to look away or if I'm just glued to the screen. It was clear that the CEO of NES was not ready to answer a lot of these questions.
It was uncomfortable.
It was uncomfortable
watch.
to watch, and we've turned to that point now, I think, with this winter storm. We are now going on, what, tomorrow will be day 11 of so many not having power. Yeah. People are angry. Right, it's past the point of anything else where I think it has turned to outright anger, and you saw that too in just the questions that many reporters were asking.
So I was wondering, were you
information?
Were you cringing at the? I think it's a remarkable tact that most of these reporters have, and the way they ask these questions.
Absolutely,
it's
and it needs
so uncomfortable for me and so many of you to witness.
It needs to be asked though when you realize, we had upwards of 200,000 people at one point who had no power. 10 days in, we still have the latest numbers, I believe, 15,000 are without power. And it's a storm that's now turned deadly, right? Some people freezing in their homes. And so rightfully so, NES needs to answer many of these questions. And we're going to play a bit for you. But Tracy, talk about just some of the updates we heard.
So some of the bullet points, the greatest damage ever to NES systems, she was saying, in history. 96% of customers have power. It's interesting that you would even phrase it that way when you're, when you're not tender to those who still are without. Right. All public schools have power. Updating restoration completion dates twice a day. They're doing that. Close to 1,800 linemen, they said, were deployed this week. 14 to 16-hour shifts they're working, and it takes 8 to 10 hours to replace a pole. So those are some of the bullets that came from her. I still see, and I think what a lot of people are seeing is like, okay, where's your emotion and your compassion, and what about us? And I don't know if they feel heard or seen enough, the public.
And I think she could say everything right under the sun, and for many people, without power, it just doesn't matter, right? And I think the biggest thing when you watch some of this, it's just conflicting information. Tracy and I sat here last night and we talked about how NES had slashed millions of dollars from their tree cutting budget.
Right. She did try to explain that.
Right, and you hear her today say, oh, we still have full budget for tree removal, we've only added, so it seems like there's just things that aren't
and that we're gonna FOIA, we're gonna be requesting, if we haven't already, I know we have, the exact records, so that we can disprove or prove what she's saying, if that is indeed true. Do you want to go ahead and play?
I do. So I'm pressing the buttons tonight. Tracy is not, so I don't know how smooth this is going to be. We're going to cue this up. We on the right one here?
Yep.
Okay,
and
let's
we're going to take our audio and we're going to listen in.
Audio.
You can push play. Yep. Here.
And play. Okay.
Choose any food item from the Paddock Lounge menu and get a $10 game card for exciting arcade games. Save money on
there we go.
Customers and now even the Speaker of the House in Tennessee are calling for the resignation of NES management. Do you believe you and other NES executives should resign from your positions after this incident?
Accountability is important. And right now we are in active recovery, but we have plenty of time to do after action review and evaluate things that we could have done better.
Speaking of things you could have done better, I've been looking at an audit, and I want to just give you a chance to talk about that. The audit talks about, did NES do enough when it comes to vegetation management, tree trimming, prior to this storm? And it said unforeseen challenges prevented trimming sufficient miles in 2025. There was also a budget cut of $7 million. So did NES do enough things like tree trimming prior to this storm?
Tree trimming has always been an integral part of our power maintenance program. So we've had a pretty aggressive tree trimming program for years. We actually have not cut the budget. The budget has increased every year over the last 4 years. We're spending, I think, $21.6 million this year on tree trimming.
It was $13 million. You're saying you did not cut the budget?
We did not cut the budget for tree trimming. It has increased every year for the last 4 years.
And you think you did enough?
I know we have an active tree trimming program, and I personally have not evaluated the miles we've trimmed, but we have certainly been aggressively trimming trees.
Okay, we're going to go here to here.
Also with the Tennessee, per my colleagues, according to your annual reports, though, you spent 33% less dollars on contract trimming grass from 2023 to 2025, from 21.28 million down to 14.298 million respectively. So, clarify, I don't really understand how, kind of stemming from that line of questioning, how that represents an increase, right? Unless, can you clarify, is that a different number than what you're talking about? Or?
It is a different number that I'm talking about. The budgeted number was really the question, and we have not cut the budget in tree trimming, and it has increased over every year over the last 4 years. Now, I am aware there was a change in vendor a few years ago that I believe probably resulted in more favorable pricing than was previously in place, but the budget itself has not been touched. It's increased.
If you're under budget, why not spend additional money to get more trees trimmed?
There may be a plan to trim more trees. I mean, I don't know that we weren't trimming additional trees in that case.
Last year you were $4 million. $18 million budget. You only spent $14 million.
Okay, so that is the news conference that we were all listening to earlier and that Tracy and I referred to at the top of this streaming. And those questions, they continue to go on for 10, 15 minutes. You can hear just one reporter right after the other ask these really hard questions just about conflicting reports and, quite frankly, on statements that just don't make sense. So you just heard the CEO try to make sense of some of the numbers, right, that we're talking about in terms of tree removal.
I'm still
just not adding up.
confused. I know, I'm still confused. But I also don't understand what that job is, and I think there's other questions of who is in charge of that team.
Sure.
That decides what needs to be cut, what needs to be trimmed so that these lines can be, especially before a storm.
And she had pointed out just this idea of after action, right? This after action report of where they're going to take a hard look at what went wrong. And that's great. The mayor also, too, putting together this own task force, if you will, of a separate entity of emergency responders and other utility members who will also look at the way NES handled this with just the hopes that this doesn't happen, right, in the future for another winter storm.
That's right. So it remains to be seen, but we keep following it. It's kind of been the only story. We were not expecting to have to, I won't say the only, because there's another story that I want to touch on real quickly.
Sure.
And that is, so as we wrap this conversation up, and it will keep going until everything is resolved, and then we get that report back. But the other big story today was day 2 of this search. It's really almost like a day 3 of Savannah Guthrie's mother.
It is heartbreaking.
Yeah, and then late today, they at least came out with something that TMZ had reported, and they tend to really do a good job at TMZ in getting some of this information first if it involves a celebrity of any kind. And then we went ahead and NBC, vetted what we could and said, yes, at least these are the sources that say there's a ransom note that was mentioned. And so if that's going on with some kind of Bitcoin trade that Savannah's mother could have been abducted to be held for ransom, these gears are still all in motion. And we're just waiting. I don't know if you are, but I'm checking constantly to see.
All the time.
What's the latest update here? Has anything else come out, and has she been found?
Well, just an 84-year-old woman, and they made it so clear that she is sharp as a tack. She didn't leave on her own accord. We learned today that there was blood found inside of her home. We don't know if that was that of Nancy Guthrie or possibly the intruder who came in and abducted her, right? All the things that they're working to figure out tonight. I had seen reports, too. It was interesting. The home had cameras, which is great. That will help aid the investigation. Portions of those cameras, though, had been removed.
Yeah, the one
around
on
the
front,
home. Yeah,
or at least where they entered.
Right, and it's just hard because they had mentioned, it was either yesterday when this all broke, that she has medicine that she needs, and if she doesn't take it, the family says it will be fatal. So it is a race against the clock at this point. 1, she needs medicine, and 2, so many people just want her to return safely. And so we sure hope they find her. Again, this investigation still going on out in Arizona.
And the interesting timing of all of this, 3 days away from the start of the Olympics, where Savannah was going to play a major role in opening ceremony and beyond. So I think anybody who has children who is a child of a living parent, right, is thinking about, okay, if this were me, and then how terrified Savannah's children must be for whatever they know. but to know that, like, who's safe, you know? And so
just don't know.
And we just know that Savannah's with her family in Tucson, so I can imagine her kids are with them too. And who knows what other threats are out there and going on against her family. So just, I don't know, it just feels awfully personal.
You know, and she had posted that message last night just to pray, right? She's just asking everyone to pray for her mother's return. So we wish that family well. I know we're going to have the latest coming up here in about 12 minutes on our main channel.
So all that, and of course your weather, which we are getting a warm up. So Dan will be in with all that information. Thank you so much for joining us today. And good job, this guy, for manning the controls.
It'll get smoother here on out. We're learning a
great.
lot of buttons back here.
You did great. You want to close it out by getting us to this?
I'll let you do it.
You want me to?
That's
Okay.
102. I'm only on 101 right now.
All right. We're just going to say this nice little wide
There
shot.
we go. It's
And then
beautiful.
we're going to say goodnight, you all. We'll see you on WSMV at 10 o'clock.